Can Ashton sneak in here? Oh, what a goal!
A few doubters this season, thinking whether I'm going to get back to my best, and I feel like that, that's just sort of proof that I am.
That's Ashton! Oh, save! To his right. To Dean Ashton! Ashton has done it in injury time! Heartbreak for Plymouth. Here's McCartney. Ashton! Dean Ashton!
Dean, so good to see you. Thank you very much for coming down. November, very important month, Men's Mental Health Month. What does that mean to you? What do you think of when you hear the terms men's mental health?
Not talked about enough. Are there enough places for men to be able to talk about their issues? Having been in an environment where you've got lots of men who have to be confident day in, day out, regardless of how they're feeling, I've sort of understood over the years that that there is an issue, and that it's finally good to hear that it's being tackled properly.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of your journey. Long time ago now.
Feels it, yeah.
But that mighty Crewe Alexandra Academy, what made that such a special place, do you think?
I think I didn't realise until I was a lot older that even though my dad didn't know a huge amount about where would be a good academy for me, for example, we ended up stumbling across probably one of the best in the country. Steve Holland, who was Gareth Southgate's England assistant, was a coach at the time and scouted me and took me along to a club that had fantastic coaches, an unbelievable manager in Dario Gradi with this magnificent vision of being able to develop young players, to sell them on and generate the funds that the club needed to improve the academy, but also help the first team squad. I didn't know that. You don't know that when you're 11 or 12. But what a bonus it was for me that I ended up at a club like Crewe that gave me just the best grounding, the best development. It was close to home for me. There was a couple of my mates that were in the academy and through to the YTS. So it always just felt just so comfortable for me in that sense. And again, very unique that when you're an under 14 player, the manager is the first team manager. I mean, when you think about it now, can you imagine Pep Guardiola finishing on a Saturday and then on a Sunday morning he's down the training ground with the under 14s, developing those players at a young age to give them the right advice to go on and be a player?
Perhaps it is, like you said, perhaps noted a little bit more now. At the time, was it just football for you? Was it literally just instilled in that academy? And I say that in the fact that I know a lot of academies now, it's education programs, it's trying to set them up to be a well-rounded individual, and perhaps life isn't all going to be football. I mean, you were blessed with a great amount of talent, but also you had the hard work, the drive to get yourself to a certain level. But for those lads that are placed in that environment, it doesn't necessarily always work out, does it? And that can be a very difficult thing to go through. Yeah,
and I think also, when I look back, the ups and downs of a 4-year period from probably 14 to 18 is ridiculous. Whether that was myself or whether it was my teammates or even a couple of my best mates who I'm still mates with, that all wanted to make it. You all think you're going to make it, and there's a massive highs of getting picked for a team or a cup game or the youth cup, or not getting picked and dropped, or going up into the older age groups and back down, and all of those sort of things that you feel you have to deal with. When I look back, it's a lot actually for young players to take when all of you want to make it, and you don't realise it, but there might be one, maybe two out of those players that you start with that will go on and have a career. That's how ruthless it is. Yet you don't really know that when you're a young player, so you have to deal with those ups and downs. And I guess it is important, depending on who you've got around you, to help you get through those when you're young.
Have you seen Crystal Palace's programme? Their academy graduates who are potentially, yeah. I mean, how good is that as a step forward?
Yeah, I think, it's vital, because, what you don't want with any certainly any academy graduate, is that there isn't multiple pathways for them. That it's not just seen as just football. I think that's you know when you talked about it was just that's what it was. It was you make it as a footballer or there's nothing else in life, and that was certainly not probably the right message. I don't think.
You have quite an elite mindset anyway. I think just speaking to you away from cameras and things, were you aware of those early days? I mean, especially when you get your move to Norwich. You've come on the back of a few really, really good seasons. You've got double promotions, you're scoring lots of goals, you are the golden boy, let's say, especially for a player so young. Liverpool and United also watching you at that age. What does that do for your mind? Does that affect you from a pressure perspective? Are you therefore going into every single game thinking, I've got to perform here? Or were you always quite able to simply shake it off because you were very good at playing football?
I think I never thought I was that good, and I always found it hard. I never ever played one game in my whole career that I thought, when people say the best players make it look easy, and I played with some players that make it look easy, it never felt easy, ever, for me. So it always felt hard work. I always felt pressure, but I had like a real inner belief that I believed in my abilities, my drive, my determination, my competitiveness with your fellow player, because it's between you and him who's going to play. I felt I always had that, but it always felt hard. It never felt like this is just going to happen. I always felt like I had to work for it. And I think that was important. And then now when I look back and I've spoken to people who were with me and they said, no, it was obvious. You were ahead of everybody. It was obvious you were going to make it. It was obvious you were going to go in the first team and do well. And I thought, that's not remotely how it felt to me. It felt really hard and sort of daunting. But I guess for those that do make it, there's so many with ability and a bit of luck here and there. But ultimately, the best players that make it is their mindset, is that ability to have that inner confidence all the time when there is that competitive environment.
What are therefore the day-to-day trepidations, if you will? Because I know, even from my perspective, it's nowhere near the level of playing week in, week out, having fans with the shirt and your name and number on the back. But I know from a personal experience, I always struggled with, I would host festival season, and Dean, it would be brilliant. We'd go for 4 days and you'd be out and you're with this artist and you're there and then you're on stage and then there's photos and you'd do all these mad things. It's really, really good fun and really cool. You would then come away from festival season and you would go back home. And life, I really struggled with just the mundane, the day-to-day, the regular days where I wasn't getting to experience those kind of highs. And I know, speaking to my friends in those moments who would live their life, very regular jobs, normal run-of-the-mill things, 9 to 5 office jobs, if I would say I'm really bored, I'm losing my mind, I've not got this, I've not got that, this presenter's got this, there just wasn't that level of understanding. Did you find that with your circle? Was it only others involved in football that would understand where you were coming from, or were you able to talk about those day-to-day issues at all at that time?
I think it was a lot easier with players around you, and I did feel confident enough to go to a senior player and ask about certain things. I was 16, 17, 18 years old when I first got into Crewe's first team, championship level. It was a really good level of football, and all of a sudden you are earning money way above what you should at that age and what your friends are, and that is always going to be hard. And the way you're treated when you're in public, when you're out with your friends, you're the same person, but it looks different to them because people are treating you differently.
Do you feel guilty for that? Like, is there almost, not necessarily the jealousy, because good friends are good friends and they're friends for a reason, but do you feel guilty when you're out and people are bothered about you and perhaps they're not necessarily bothered about those around you? Or how do you manage that?
I maybe didn't think about that at the time. I think I do now. I'm older. I can understand how the career I've had can take away from somebody you're with, because people want to talk about that, but not at the time, because I was trying to be 17, 18, so I thought it was normal, but it wasn't. Obviously, to my friends, it wasn't normal the way I was being treated, the money I had, and it's hard. And I did have those moments. I'm embarrassed that I bought a Porsche when I was like a 911 when I was 18. I'm so embarrassed that I took that home to where I lived with my parents. My dad had worked so hard all his life. He'd have loved to have had a car like that. And there's this jumped up 18-year-old bringing in a car. And it's those things I look back on. I didn't have it for long, of course. You know, first team players soon told me that. But it's those sort of things that you look back on and think that was just such a silly thing to do. But you can get caught up in the hype of it, I guess. And when people are treating you so well when you're out in the public and when you're out, it's difficult for that not to go to your head a bit.
And eventually going to Norwich, goals against the likes of, I think, City, Newcastle. You, as a striker anyway, you tend to be in and amongst the headlines. You tend to be the match winner. You tend to get those kind of magic moments. Talk to me though, therefore, in seasons when you're doing so well as you did, to then get relegated. What's that like from an emotional perspective?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely gutting because you feel like you've worked so hard, you've been given an opportunity. The idea was that I was brought there to help the team stay up, and you're not. So you do feel a bit of a failure in terms of what you were brought there to do, you weren't able to achieve. But then there was that selfishness that I had, and I still had a lot to prove. I hadn't made it by any stretch. I'd had 6 months in the Premier League, I'd had a taste of it, and I wanted more. So I didn't see it as, you know, obviously straight away, of course you do, but give it a month or so, it's right back to, wow, I've had a taste of Premier League football. I want to help this team to start with, get back to the Premier League. I want more of that. There was still a real drive because I was only 21 years old at the time.
And that kind of juxtaposition of regular life. I think the important thing is when we were on the train down today, we were speaking to a couple of Stoke fans, and again, it's that comparison of roles and the adulation, the focus that you get with football, but these people are just very normal people. For footballers, they're just simply fulfilling a role that they're paid to do a job. It just so happens that job is centred around a world of intrigue that potentially doing something else may not. But that is something that you see in every role, right? No matter if you'll set a goal and you don't quite achieve it, and maybe you're the man who is meant to build relationships to engage in certain contracts and so on, that contract doesn't come off, or you lose a big client, there's pressure to then get it back. So everything you see in football still resonates, right?
Yeah, because you're only one decision from a manager, one poor game away from, you know, that career possibly spiralling downwards, because there are thousands of other players just below you that can't wait for you to slip, and they'll be there because they're all so driven to make it. So that's the pressure I felt every day, I would say. Every time you go in is you've got to prove yourself. You know, your place isn't set. You know, there's more you want to achieve. That was how I sort of went about it. But you're right. You know, other than that, once you left the training ground, you very not. You know, my days, especially when I was younger, playing in the Premier League, but I'm at Norwich, was, you know, go home, watch a film. You know, I'm 21. What am I? Watch a film, rest. You know, watch a bit of telly. Like that. It was pretty normal, to be honest.
And eventually, you get the call from Alan Pardew. Despite obviously going down, I think you scored, was it 10 in 28 then with Norwich in that first part of the season. So you've kicked on. I think you had a slight injury trouble during that to break it up a little bit. You get that move to West Ham. How do you look back at your time at West Ham? 'Cause you had a great group, didn't you, there?
It was an unbelievable group. I was so fortunate to go into that club at that time. I mean, Alan Pardew was, you know, a fantastic manager, great man manager, you know, great confidence in himself, made me feel like I was being the signing that, you know, everyone was then going to work around me. But to have some of the players there, the core of that squad, to have a Teddy Sheringham who I'd idolised and get to watch him firsthand every day in training and learn from him was invaluable at that time when I was, you know, still only sort of 22, still learning very much that role, to then be able to learn from someone like him and go into a club that was really on the up. You know, when I went to Norwich, they were struggling down at the bottom of the Premier League. West Ham had just been promoted and were shooting up the Premier League and had a real confidence about them. It was great to go into a club that had that, the passion of the supporters. Upton Park, it was just, it really felt like a big jump up in terms of stature and not pressure, because I put so much pressure on myself anyway. So But what I just thought, what an opportunity this is to be part of this football club and learn off the people that are here. But it was difficult, as in, there's 4 great strikers at the football club.
Who else did you have?
So there was, fighting for 2 spots were me, Marlon Harewood, Bobby Zamora, and Teddy Sheringham. That's 4 great strikers, all in their own rights, that are playing for 2 spots. So that brought a different pressure that I probably hadn't been used to.
Nigel Rio-Coker was coming through as well. Was he still fairly young at that time?
Oh yeah, he was captain. He was so young.
What made Alan Pardew special in that? I mean, you were already a big lad up front anyway, Dean. But I guess you look at the way that Alan Pardew manages those individuals. He makes you feel 10 foot tall, whether you're the size of Nigel, the size of yourself. To see other young players though getting given those opportunities, being pushed, it feels like a really healthy environment.
Oh, it was, yeah, and there was a competitive edge to training, to the trying to win your spot in the team, but it was a healthy competitiveness. It wasn't a nastiness to it. I think that is what the manager's role was. At this level now, everybody's a good player. They are. Whether people sit in the stands and think they're not, they are. They're all great players in their own right. So it's how does a manager manage that group of players to get them to be competitive, but also have a great camaraderie and togetherness when people are being left out of the team. And that's what I thought he did probably better than anybody that I've had as a manager, was that he was able to create a group that had that edge but got on so well, and then produce some great performances and some great football to be a part of.
Well, that season was the 05-06, wasn't it? Which was the FA Cup final. It could have and should have been the Dean Ashton final. It goes down as the Steven Gerrard final, of course. But before we get through the actual game itself, biggest moment of your career?
Oh yeah.
And especially when are you aware that it's the biggest moment of your career when you're going into it?
Yes, it feels it. Yeah. It still really had the magic of the day in terms of the build-up that I'd remembered that I'd watched when I was a kid. Waking up on an FA Cup final day when I was young, and you get to watch it all the way through when they're at the hotel, the suits, the bus journey to Wembley, going out on the pitch, royalty, the songs. It still had a magic to me anyway. So
does anything prepare you then for that?
No.
Or do you just go into it as it's a normal game?
No, you can't. There's nothing about it that feels normal. So as much as people want to say, just do the same routine, how? Everybody's talking about it for the weeks leading up. No one wants to get injured. All your family and friends are talking about it. Everyone wants to be there. There's so much media to do. The hype around it. It can't be the same. So you have to go into it differently. And that's why we see so many incredible moments in these finals, because the pressure, once you're there, is just so immense.
Is that almost an important message then for people to take away from moments like that? Because I think, so when you speak to managers and things, we just treat it like another game, but like you say, the routine around it is so far from normal. For anybody else that's going into a big moment, a big meeting and so on and so forth, is it almost therefore having the sense to be aware of it, take it all in and be honest with yourself a little bit, rather than trying to trick the mind subconsciously to just, it's regular run of the mill, but actually if you acknowledge the feelings that you feel, are you able to therefore channel them better?
I think so. That's how I approached it. That's how I looked at it, was to embrace it. Trust yourself. There's a reason you're here. You've done all the work to be here. What is there to fear? There's so much to gain. So I mean, maybe that was my mentality. Maybe that was a striker's mentality, was that there's everything to gain by this game that you've got coming up. So why not embrace that pressure that's there, and you're not going to enjoy it, but you can certainly
utilise it to make the best and thrive in that environment.
Exactly, and it's a test for yourself, really, that you've got to try and embrace and try and push through. And again, it's something I've always thought about, which is I put nerves and excitement pretty much at the same as the same thing. So if I'm nervous, I'm probably a bit excited, and if I'm excited, I'm probably a bit nervous. They're both very similar. I'm never just thinking I'm really nervous. There's an excitement to that, and I actually thought that's a good thing. If you've got that, it means that whatever you're about to do really means something to you.
but there's nothing to be fearful of it.
You almost missed out, didn't you? Did you have a hamstring injury in the run-up to it?
I tweaked my hamstring about 3 weeks before at West Brom, and didn't know if I would be fit, and did everything I could to be fit. Oxygen chambers, all sorts of different treatments. Managed to get myself fit the week of, but Bobby Moore had played brilliant in the games that I wasn't there, so I didn't know I'd get to start the game. So for me, yeah, to actually get fit and then start the game and obviously score and have that moment.
Well, you also played the pass, didn't you, which forced the first goal?
Yes, so yeah, I played a pass down the side and then Scaloni crossed it in for Carragher to...
Great finish.
Brilliant, Carragher, thanks. Yeah.
And then to get that moment, that's almost like, I mean, we'll talk about England briefly as well, because those kind of calls are almost the validation of your life's work, isn't it? Saying, you've made it. That time when you score that goal, what's the immediate thought process in your mind? And did you look up to anybody in the stands? Is it the acknowledgement of not only your life's work, but also for any footballer to make it, it's the family, it's the parents, it's your close-knit circle, agents, best friends. So much sacrifice actually goes into your success. Do you remember that? Was that something that you were aware of?
I didn't think of any of them.
I just scored at the Millennium Stadium, don't worry about it.
I didn't. I was so selfish in how I thought. I just thought about myself. First of all, it was a relief because it was something I was so desperate to do. Then when you see the ball go in the back of the net, it's like that instant relief of I've done it. Then it's a moment of wanting to enjoy that moment, like looking around thinking you've just scored in an FA Cup final in this stadium, that kind of realisation, and then your teammates are there, so I didn't think about anybody else.
Plus then you've got to go on and try and win a game, right?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But it's the only photo I have of me playing football in my house, so I don't have any other photos of me playing. I have that photo because that's the truest photo of my reaction to a goal. That was just, I had no control over it. You can see it on my face. Other goals, as strikers, you can be a bit arrogant and you practice and think about what you're going to do if you score. That wasn't. That was just pure joy from scoring in that big moment.
Is there also, I mean, you get taken off around 72nd minute. You're 3-2 up at that time. Especially as self-confessed goal scorer, selfish, I want to be that man, that is why you play number 9 in the first place. How hard is it to give up control in a moment like that? You've got to sit back, and obviously your teammates are very talented group of players who are in the FA Cup final for a reason. You need them to see it out, really, don't you? How difficult is that for you to do?
It's the worst thing anyone can do as a player is watch. It's, when you can't influence it, it's horrible. Whether you're on the bench, whether you've come off and sat on the bench, or whether you're a player that didn't even make the bench, sitting and watching is just the hardest thing for a player to do, because you can't influence it. And you're right, you're then just leaning on your teammates to get through that. Unfortunately, they had a player that was from a different planet, so at that time he was at the peak of his powers and scored a goal. You kind of have to hold your hands up and say there wasn't a lot you could do about it. But it's crushing to not be able to have an influence, especially then when you go into extra time and penalties, and I would have been a penalty taker. It's difficult to relinquish that control.
Where does Gerrard rank for you? Away from this conversation, where does he sit? The best centre midfielder the Premier League's ever seen?
I actually think he's head and shoulders above anyone I've seen and played with or against. He just had every attribute you could think of as a midfield player, and delivered, having been fortunate enough to play in an FA Cup final, delivering in the biggest moments when everyone else looks like they're falling apart. He can stand forward and deliver, and that says everything about how good he was.
What about world football? Zidane's, Modric. I mean, Modric is still going.
I think he's better than Modric, but Zidane, no, that guy is unbelievable.
Top 2, top 3, he's up there, isn't he?
Oh, he is. Yeah. He is. I still don't think he probably gets the credit he deserves, actually.
Okay, interesting one. We'll save that one. Dean Ashton, the England international. How does that feeling stand for you?
Oh, the proudest you can have. The reason I got into football was England, was Gary Lineker, was Italia 90. That's the reason I was a footballer. Was after that I was obsessed. So to get that opportunity to be part of that, to wear that shirt, to sing the national anthem, doesn't get any prouder than that as a player. So to be able to say that I'm one of those players, and actually when you think of how few there are, it's amazing to be able to say that.
To finally make it, and now you see the names around St George's Park and stuff, and it's part of that, the golden generation and so on. You then pick up the injury. It was Sean Wright Phillips' tackle, wasn't it? Did you realise in that moment the severity of it, or?
Not the severity of how it would change my life, no. I think I could tell I'd broken my ankle because I could hear it and feel it. But at that moment, all I was thinking was, that's my England chance gone. You think you're only going to get one, and you've got one chance to impress. And if you can impress, you get to stay. If not, you're probably out because they'll pick other players. So to me, the worry was that was my chance gone. And that was what was most upsetting in the moment, was that the day before you're going to make your England debut, the proudest moment you could ever think of, and the next step in your career is just gone, just like that, and you think that's going to be it. So that was the hardest part of it, was thinking that chance had gone.
How would you deal with that?
I don't really know in terms of, I don't think there's a formula. I don't think you can just think, oh well, if you do this, this and this, that's how you get through it. I don't think it is. I think everyone is so individual with how they probably would deal with it. I guess, it was a case of, well, this is the injury, this is how we're going to deal with it as myself and the medical team, and being very, I guess, structured with that belief of getting back and playing. There was certainly no talk of career ending, certainly at that point.
It should have been, what, 3 or 4 months? Usually that
type of injury would, but it was such an unusual break. The way I broke it, should I say, was unusual. So that's what gave me the biggest problems. But after the initial sort of devastation of missing out on that opportunity, again, I quickly got into that kind of, I would say, elite mentality of, right, now I've got a task of getting fit again. But without a doubt, being injured is easily the hardest thing you could have to do as a player.
I guess in we're saying about the moment, you're not going to have that realisation, are you, that it could have the effect that it potentially would have. The ups and downs, though, of that recovery process, I mean, on a much more basic level, I've got a friend who broke his finger. He thinks he can play cricket, he can't. Always saying how he doesn't drop catches, he's dropping them in training, but it broke his little finger. And then strangely enough, because it's such an awkward break, he's not been able to work since April time. And it's more been for him, the tough side mentally has been the ups and the downs of, right, I've got my appointment and I can do this, and then I'll get the scan, and then I'll get this, and I'll get my operation, and so on and so forth, and I'll be back in work and life will be good again, and a bit of normality. Every time he's gone back, it's seemingly been an issue, and then they're waiting for a plate or a pin to put in that it's been built in Germany, and there's a delay on that. Is it that recovery process that was perhaps hardest for you? Every time you were maybe taking a step forward, there was maybe 2 steps back?
Yeah, and it's so painstakingly slow. So as much as you want to be back, probably the 2 hardest things I found with being injured was that you're in the physio room early, you're doing treatment, you're really focused on the things that you've got on that day to build yourself, and there's little targets that you're trying to aim for. But then there's this rush of players that come in that are happy, life's great, they're going out training, they're doing something they love, it's a hobby, they're with their mates, they're laughing, they're joking, they're talking about the night before or the game or whatever that is, and you have that rush, and then they all disappear, and then it goes really quiet again, and then you're back to, and you look out the window and you miss it, and that is just so difficult to deal with.
Did you acknowledge those thoughts, or was it just...
No, I did, and it was difficult, so I took myself away. I didn't stay in that environment because I thought, this is, for me, how can I feel better about the day-to-day work I'm doing? It's not having this rush of emotion from all the players and the, slap on the thigh, how are you doing, when are you back, that sort of thing. I stepped away from that just to concentrate on myself, the injury, what I need to do every single day without having the pain of the rush of people and looking out to the grass. So that was my way of dealing with it, was to take myself away from it.
But that image of you being able to do that is so incredibly powerful, because, I mean, again, I take no shame. I go and speak to somebody once a month, and I think I go to the gym regularly, and that's looked at as, well, that's a normal thing, it's a regular thing, you've got to maintain your body. I also now consider going to therapy and speaking to somebody something that regulates my mind. It maintains a steady equilibrium, makes you realise so many aspects of life which you can celebrate and try and create healthy habits in. The one thing that I know you've just touched upon there is being really self-aware, almost, and asking yourself those deep questions as to going, what are almost like my triggers, and what push me to struggle more in some respects, and you're looking at it and going, well, actually that doesn't make me feel very good. So therefore, why would I continue to do that? Why would I continue to put myself in an environment that doesn't enable me to be the best version of Dean Ashton? So you take yourself away. And I think that's so powerful in terms of when people do have problems, people are so narrow-minded and tunnel vision and focus on it, that is the only thing that matters, and therefore you lose all of these other aspects in which make you happy, that are actually, because it's probably 5% as to who Dean Ashton actually is, maybe 10% tops. People will know you as a footballer, but you are so much more than that, and so is every single person walking around on the planet despite their day-to-day issues. Did you have people around you? Did you speak to them at all, or was it not really I predominantly focused on the physical?
Again, this wasn't talked about a lot at that stage of my career. Men's mental health wasn't talked about. So, but without me probably realising, yes, I had that self-awareness that this is not making me happy, so why would I continue to do it? So I took myself away. But what I didn't realise was actually that person, that physio, was going to be my physio, counsellor, mate. And to get me through, because who is going to get me through this period where it's mentally so tough for me? Who's going to get me through it? Well, the person that knows what it takes to get back from this injury is probably the best person to be able to talk to and trust and work with, and that's exactly what happens. Which is why I'm so close to him, still now, many years later, because you have this bond of he's helped you get through those really difficult moments. Again, not because I went for him as a counsellor, but he ended up, guiding me through those things because I could trust his judgment, because he knew what he was talking about.
Well, otherwise, a lot of people don't know what to do with those kind of thoughts, do they? I did my ACL years ago, charity football matches, and can't afford to do it anymore, probably for the best anyway. But when you do your ACL, tell people you've done your ACL or you're injured, whatever it may be, they go, oh, did you get an ambulance out? Go, yeah. Go, you get gas and air? I said, did I? Did you get the operation? You get restrung? Go, yeah. And it's a really straightforward process. When your mind is slightly broken, you say, really struggling. People go, They don't really know whether to say, well, have you spoke to someone? Have you got help? Nobody really knows how to deal with it. It's more the physical aspect that is so straightforward, yet up there for some reason is very different, and is almost still quite taboo.
Yeah, it is, and I think there needs to be obviously more awareness of it, but then there has to be that feeling that you can speak to somebody, and that's how I felt. Now, whether that was because that's the type of person I am, but I felt I could talk to the physio about how I was feeling, talk to him about what I need to do next, talk to him about why have I gone back 2 steps in my sort of rehab journey, and being able to talk about it means I went home every night at least clear as to what that day had brought me, and then next day what my next sort of challenge was. So I guess it is having the bravery to be able to trust somebody with what you're thinking about.
And eventually you would get back. That fight to get back, you're back on the grass. But you did eventually take the difficult decision at the age you did. I mean, you look back on careers such as yours and the player that you were able to be, and the things that you would have potentially gone on to achieve. You were an unbelievable player to watch at times. How difficult a moment is that when you are closing that door?
it feels near on impossible because that's all I'd ever dreamed of. That's what I was. That was my identity. I was Dean Ashton, the footballer. I wasn't just Dean. Not to many, a few people, but to most, that's your identity. To have that taken away, and when you love something as well, I loved it. I loved going in every day. I loved the challenge of being a player, the thrill of being in training, the exhilaration of going to stadiums and being one of 22 people that everyone's come to watch. There's not a lot that can replace that. So to have to deal with that, but then I'm such a realist, and I always have been such a realist. So the realization for me was, I can't even walk, let alone be a player. My priorities are, I need to be able to walk and have, with my children, be able to go in the garden and play, or if we go to a theme park, not walk for 30 minutes and then have to sit down for an hour while they carry on and come back for me. That's the realization for me. That was my life at that moment. So I was thinking about those important things, not the glitz and the glamour and the football. Was what was right in front of me that was real and I had to deal with. That's how I thought about it. And also, football's not real. That is a fantasy. It's amazing to be part of it. I'm so grateful that I was part of it, but that is not real. And lots of people will be in lots of moments, whether it's work or outside of work, where that's not real. That doesn't happen all the time. It's not normal for 60,000 people to go mental if you score a goal. It's just not. When you look in the crowd and the way they act, that's not normal. It's not normal for people to stop you in the street and treat you that way and be, amazed that they've seen you and treat you like you're above them. That's not normal. It's not normal to go out to bars and just ropes just open, just let you in and free drinks. It's not normal. So to me, it's that was that fantasy world I was part of, and I love being part of it. But actually, I'm in the real world, which is when you're at home, I still have to put the bins out. Do you know what I mean? I still take my kids to school. I do all the things that everybody else does at home. That's the real life. So that's how I dealt with it. In just separating it, that this was this fantasy that I was part of. But actually what's important now, what's really important is my family, my health, still getting to do something I love. So golf was that release for me. And that's how I always approach things.
And how is that life now for you? How is life being Dean?
I still feel that same way. I still feel like I'm a realist, and I'm so fortunate. I've now built another career that's still within the field of football that I love, and still getting to do, having time with the family, and also having different hobbies that I'm involved with, whether it's golf or anything else. Then so my life's great because I'm still driven and want to do things in terms of within my job now. There's still goals I want to set and be like I was as a player. I want to be the best version of that.
Well, you're definitely up there, Dean. And we won't keep you any longer because we know you have got a radio show to go and do. There's lots of games going on as ever. But really, really thank you for coming down and speaking to us. Incredible insight, really powerful conversation. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.